Morning, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 15080 Southwest 88th Avenue here in Tigard. We're located at the front of the house. I describe everything as if you're standing in the street facing the front of the home. So we are off to the right of the front doorway from that orientation, right up against the front right corner of the house here. In fact, your clean out, it's an easy one to figure out because of where the toilet's at. It's a simple setup house. Line runs straight away from that toilet right out front here. It sits directly in front of the first, or this foundation vent here near the corner. Anyhow, dropping into a 3-inch ABS cleanout, checking the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Waters are running. We are zeroed out. Off we go. All right, does a hard, in fact, the line right here almost looks like it's making a diameter change. It may just be the angle we're diving at. We'll get a better view of that when the line's drained out. Absolutely spotless clean flow line. This is precisely how you want your line to look right here. There are almost no signs of life in this sewer line, honestly. It's incredibly clean. Most notably, no grease buildup. That's the number one thing that gunks your pipes up. It is responsible for a lot of blockages. Got some little dangly thing hanging down here. We will revisit this on the way out. That's a hard one right there. But pretty much all that stringy stuff we're looking at right there is just cobwebs. Again, we'll take a second look. That's all reminiscent of cobwebs. Anyway, that little dangly item there a moment ago I referred to in the plastic pipe, it's at a test T connection, and what's tricky about those is it could, theoretically be roots. It could also very easily be a glue drip. It's a very common spot to get one of those. Someone puts too much glue in one of the joints, it drips down and hardens in place. It's an extremely common thing to see. So when those little stringy items get gunked up like that one is, it makes it very difficult to tell if it's a root, a couple tiny little root strands that have been gunked over, or if it's a little excess piece of pipe glue. I went through a little bit of a belly there. Again, another spot we'll look at as we come out. And we are in concrete pipe. I didn't mention that already. All right, there's the main connection. So we're gonna go locate really quick here. Once the line drains out, we'll get a much better view of things as we come back out. We'll be able to see the bellies. We'll take a look at some of the pipe joints and the concrete pipe. I located the camera head successfully. Line here does just about a straight shot all the way to the main. If you draw an imaginary line from the clean out, straight line right to the middle of the road, that's essentially the path the line takes. So we do have standing water in some areas throughout the concrete pipe here, especially towards this latter part of it. So that stuff there, pretty minor. That was about a 1/16 of an inch of standing water. Going back into another one here. About a 1/4 of an inch there. Minor stuff. Zero buildup in the line too, and I would not expect to see buildup in a belly that small. For reference, where I typically start recommending repairs on bellies is once there's at least an inch of standing water for a minimum of 5 feet. And generally speaking, these days, I've done almost 25,000 sewer scopes. It's kind of a reference point and how I developed that rule of where I start recommending repairs on these things. A 5-foot belly with an inch of water is typically something I recommend a repair on when it's up close to the house. That distance from the home there, you would have to abuse this thing like no tomorrow to get a blockage to form in a spot like that. If you're beating the line up that hard, you're going to likely develop a blockage before you even get to that point. Anyway, clean concrete pipe there, drains off well. bellies, in my opinion, are too minor to require repair work. Especially if I can't even recommend you spend $5 drain cleaning the sewer line. Ripping the entire road apart does not make any sense. Oh, I will try and locate this really quick here. My camera even moved those things kind of up out of the way. To be honest with, and I cannot tell you how many thousands of root intrusions I've seen. This is looking more like a glue drip than anything. I'll locate to see where it's at, but there's nowhere near enough going on there to even verify what that is. And being that they're not getting down into the flow line, roots typically are trying to get to the flow line so they can get nutrients. Where those are at there, if they are even more roots, they are incapable of actually getting any nutrients from the line. So another reason I don't think they're roots. But every now and then, someone doesn't cap that test tee, and something does grow down through it. But anyway, I will notate on the report possible roots at 26 feet. There's just not enough going on to verify. And right now, I'm leaning towards that not even being roots, but there's enough stringy stuff going on there that there's the possibility of it. Let's put it that way. The other thing I don't see are dirt streaks going down the sidewall or anything like that that tells me that's opened up to the ground. Generally, if roots are getting in, it's separated something enough that groundwater can also seep in, and the sidewalls don't show any drip marks going down them. So, anyway, when I say possible, I think it's a low possibility based on what I see here right now. All right, so I did locate this just for the sake of doing it, so you know where this is at, because it is, again, it's possible it could be roots. There's just not enough here to tell if that is indeed the case or not. And I'll review this video in some better lighting to get a better view of it. I've got a little bit of sun glare out here, but the shape those things are, they look more like glue drips than roots. You're at 8 foot 6 inches deep. You know, for instance, if it were, again, theoretically, were roots, a lot of times they grow down through an uncapped or a unglued cap on those things. So the line is 8 foot 6 inches deep. That doesn't mean the top of the test tee is. Sometimes those test tees come up a ways, and they're not too terribly deep. So anyway, being that there's not enough there to verify anything, it's not something I'm recommending a fix on. The bellies that are out in the road, I will also notate those on the report. Get way too minor, in my opinion, to require repairs. Teeny tiny little things. And a superbly clean sewer line. The line also has a ton of fall to it. You can see how hard this line is diving here, which is generally more meaningful when you've got more significant bellies than what we're looking at here. What you have here has very, very little to almost no effect on functionality. The only time you'll see any kind of buildup on a consistent basis with bellies that small is if you are flushing humongous wads of, I mean, stuff that has no business going down your sewer line down the pipe. And or putting a lot of cooking oil and grease down the line, which will build up anywhere in a sewer line, but especially likes to when it hits any amount of standing water. And this right here, I always like to run backwards. Some folks like to jet their line out preemptively before they sell a home to minimize the look of things. However, almost no one hydrojets backwards. So sometimes I'll get these lines that are absurdly clean on the outside, and I'll go to run backwards, and they're just gunked up like no tomorrow. And that's what you're actually looking at, the true state of the line at that point. This thing is spotless clean end to end. Looks fantastic. All right, we're gonna go ahead and roll the camera out of the line. We have good flow all the way out to the main lateral connection. I'll notate the three things I found here in the line, but all of them are way too minor and or they're just way too small to even verify what's going on. We have good flow of the main lateral. Line is functioning properly at this time. And I did, for the sake of it, again, this is not a repair marking, but out here in the yard, right as the yard starts to dive down, you'll see a white paint marking there where that test tee connection is, where you possibly have roots. That's just there for reference so you can see where it's at. You know, wouldn't hurt to rescope in a year to see if anything looks different. Based on how clean this line is, though, the reason I mentioned the cleanliness of the line, there's no evidence the line has been cleaned recently to, like, let's say, cut roots out and minimize the look of them, cut them back. So that's another reason why I'm leaning far more towards not being roots than anything, than just simply debris or a glue drip. And stringy stuff going down lines can get caught up inside those tie-ins there too. Anyhow, sewer line's functioning properly at this time.